Welcome, everybody. This is the Doug,
Glorf.
Fort.
and we're here live with the Cosmere podcast. We don't know what the name is yet, but it's gonna when we come up with the name, viewers, listeners, it's going to be epic. And so, to start off the introductions today, we're going to be discussing what misting would we be if we could be a misting or ferrochemist, assuming we could not be twin-born, one power. For the record, so the Doug is a rider, would definitely want to go with the rider. That's just how the Doug rolls. He gets people all worked up, either for good or for ill. That's always been the Doug's talent. So the Doug would be a rider. Glorf, what would you be?
Goodness, okay. There's two I can't choose between. I'd want to be a lurcher or a soother. A lurcher, because do you know how easy it would be? You just put a piece of metal on everything in your house that you want, and then if you're in the same room as it, you can just bring it over to you with just a little bit of mess. It'd be super easy. And a soother would be nice because it would help put the kids to sleep at night and maybe de-escalate tantrums. So both would be very helpful, very good. That's why I'd want to be one of those.
Well,
about
I
you,
would
Fort?
also actually choose Rioter. Um, I was thinking between Rioter and Soother. Soother's a little bit harder because you have to isolate the thing you want and be able to suppress all the other things. In the Rioter, you just choose what you want. You just kind of pull at it, so it's a lot easier. So if you're talking to someone new, instead of needing to soothe their suspicion, needing to soothe their worry, their anxiety, whatever, you just riot their fondness for you, or you riot their trustworthiness. You just write one emotion, and you can even do multiple at a time, I'm assuming. I don't think we've ever actually seen it happen, but I'm assuming you could just like soothe multiple emotions. But writing just sounds a little easier than soothing and would be more useful in everyday life.
Well, and I think we have seen multiple occasions where Breeze is able to soothe multiple emotions at the same time, right? Because he talks about how he takes away their worry and their fear and their anger to push their curiosity.
Yeah, we've seen Breeze do with soothing, and so I'm just, even though because we haven't met many rioters except for, I think, I want to say Ariane. Okay, it is Ariane. Okay, yeah. And I think she just mainly did one emotion at a time, usually, from what we saw. But
Well, we never see, she's never a POV character. We get Breeze's point
I
of
think
view
she
where
is
he's
one
sitting
time.
there.
I think she is
one
one time, isn't she? Or is it from
Yeah.
Breeze's? I think she is one at least.
Right, when
Very
she returns
shortly.
to Set's camp.
That's right.
That's
Okay.
what it is. But we don't really, you're right, we do see a little bit of her rioting the people that helped her, but we see more of Breeze and his
Yeah.
thought process when he soothes. So that's why we have more experience with soothing multiple emotions rather than rioting multiple. I
Yeah.
believe in you though, Fort. I think if you wanted to be a writer, you could riot multiple emotions.
I figured.
Excellent. Okay. Well, with that, let's move on to Sanderson news. Glorf is going to give us the latest update in the Sanderverse.
Yes, I am. So the latest update from Brandon Sanderson is the percentages for the books. Geez, I should know these off the top of my head. Stormlight is up to 66, maybe 68%, which is really good. However, he's got beta readers coming up. So there's going to be no increase in percentage next week because he's going to be focusing on revisions, which is both good and bad. Sad because the percentage meter doesn't go up, but it's good because, we want a well-written book. And then I think that was the only thing that really came up in Sanderson news was just the percentage bars, and he's making good progress. Skyward Legacy is also making decent progress. Things are moving along.
Excellent. And for those of you who like collecting fine books, they currently have all the leather-bound editions of the Stormlight Archive books available and in stock. Not the signed ones, but the leather-bound ones. And if I had a lot more money to spend, I would definitely be buying those. And then I would buy new bookshelves because my bookshelves are already full of Sanderson. Excellent. Anything to add there, Fort?
No, you guys covered it pretty well. I can't think of anything else going on right now. Yeah.
Excellent. So Next item we have on the list is a recap of Skyward Part 2 and discussing where we are at in book club. So, for this segment, it will be spoiler free for Skyward.
The spoiler up to part 2.
Yes, I
Through
guess
part 2.
through part 2.
But beyond that, no. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. So if you
Yes.
read Skyward parts 1 and 2, this will be spoiler free for you.
And
Okay.
Glorf will lead out the discussion, but I just got to say, we meet my 2 favorite characters in the entire Cytoverse in part 2. So,
Yes,
Oh.
I have a stuffed version of one of those 2 favorite characters that I was gifted for Mother's Day. Doug, do you want to tell us who those 2 favorite characters are?
I'll let you go ahead and recap first for us. Let people guess.
All right. So we end part 1 with Cobb giving her cadet's pin and saying, "All right, I control who's in my classroom. Come on up." And start part 2 begins with her exiting the elevator up at Alta Base. And the first person she meets off the elevator is Kimmelin, who is also in Cobb's class. And so she gets to Cobb's class and immediately picks a fight. Like, you guys, we discussed how feisty Spencer is, right? She immediately picks a fight. Let's see, who's the best at naming off all the members of the flight? Trying to remember, we got as they trickle in,
Morgan,
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got
Jordan,
Gorgon, Kimmelin,
Ned, Arturo, Rig,
Bim,
some of them I only
Morning
remember their call
Tide,
sign. Yeah, Morning
Morning
Tide,
Tide.
Pearl,
FM.
FM. Did you already say Bim?
I
Yes.
said Ben.
You said Bim. Some of them I know their names, some of them I know their call signs.
Alfie.
Amphi, that's Arturo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they all gather up in
Maybe.
class. Spencer picks a fight and Cobb has to take her out in the hallway and have a talking to. "I control my class, but I had to pull a lot of strings. If you pick fights again, you're not gonna, if you keep doing this sort of thing, you're not gonna fly." Which kind of shocks her into fighting less. But they start training. They've got basically, what do they call them? Mock pits?
Mock
They've got
pits.
mock pits.
Holographic, they're basically cockpits that are equipped with holographic displays in order to simulate the full experience of being in a fighter machine, in a starfighter.
Minus the G-force.
Minus the G-force.
Minus
Which-
the G-force.
If you're ever in the Clearfield, Utah area and you want to sit in a cockpit, they have them at Hill Air Force Base. Great place to stop by. It's a totally free too. You can see all the craziest airplanes you've ever seen. So just giving a plug out there.
Plug out to our favorite Air Force,
Air Force
Museum.
Museum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Huh?
Go ahead, Glorf. Continue.
All right. But if anybody remembers my rant about Ironsides last week, this is where a lot of it comes from. First day happens, she goes to go to dinner with her flight and ends up being kicked off base. Ironsides refuses to give her food or housing. This is why I hate her. We had this whole conversation like on a different segment last week. But so she goes and Ironsides expects her to go home. That's the whole thing, right? Cobb even tells her they're expecting you to go home. So instead, Spencer, who, if you guys, I don't know if we covered this last time
We did.
in the last section.
Part 1, Spence had found an old abandoned starfighter. She has the brilliant idea a starfighter cockpit is large enough to sleep in, so she goes and finds the old starfighter and decides to live in the cave like a savage warrior woman of old.
She has her light line and she kind of makes kind of a home out of it. She bathes while she's at school. She hunts rats. She gathers mushrooms. And she runs into a little friend who also lives around the ship and names this little yellow and blue slug
Doom
Dooms.
Slug. And
You
I
have to
love Doom
listen.
Slug. Doom Slug's
See, the
adorable.
audiobook is the best. The voice that the Reader uses for Doomslug is just adorable. But yes, we meet Doomslug. And then Spencer commutes from cave to school, until actually it's not even then. The end of day one, they get called out to go flying and fighting. The day of the morning when most of them had crashed in their first flight simulation, they're called out to go fighting. Does somebody else want to describe the fight at all?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So all day, I believe she says for 4 hours they were training, just, lifting off and then landing, lifting off and landing. And that's all they know how to do, really. And so they got called up, and all they were told to do is fly out and stand in a line, fly in a line. And so they're sitting there the whole time. And then this Krell ship ends up coming down underneath, close to the surface, so the AA guns can't get it, which is anti-aircraft guns. So, and they called in, they're like, hey, this is coming, like, what do we do? And Cobb tells them, hold on, wait, your replacements are coming because you're not supposed to be there this long. And they're like, well, it's getting way too close because it can kill a whole bunch of farmers and everything, so we're going to go engage it. And Cobb ends up getting the go-ahead from Haya for them to go engage this. And so they're kind of doing a little dogfight, and they're just doing more defensive maneuvers, just spinning around, moving, because they don't know how to shoot any of these things. They haven't learned any of that. And it ends up getting on Jorgen's tail, and it's almost about to shoot him down, if I remember right. And Kimmelin, I believe Kimmelin, right?
Call sign Quirk.
Quirk, yep. Quirk ends up shooting it down at long range because it turns out that her father is actually an AA gunner and actually taught her how to do that.
Actually, your slip up with Quirk reminds me, we discover the real meaning of call signs in this section. So Raj and Spencer had their own picked out before, Rig and Spin. And then people like Kimmelin, she wants to be quick, and it ends up being called Quirk. And then there's Jorgen, who never wanted to be Jerkface, but is basically, Cobb tells him, you can be grumpy about it, or you can roll with it. Just roll with Jerkface. And thus Jerkface is born. It's another fun thing we're introduced to in part 2. Okay, so we finished that. Where did we get to? Back and forth, back and forth.
After the first battle, they start to pay a whole lot more attention. Here's the thing. None of them are really happy with Cobb because he spends the entire first week making them go up and down, learning how to take off and land and take off and land. And then he spends the entire next week teaching them, here's how you fly in a straight line. And they get all whiny and they're like, come on, all the other flight instructors are letting their flights do dog fighting. They're letting them play with the instructors. And Cobb's answer is basically, I'm not all those other pilots. If you like them, I'm not all those other flight instructors. If you like them so much, go ask them to be your dad. And so he gets grumpy about it. They're all grumpy about it. But
basically, he says, well, they're going to go get themselves killed. I'm going to teach you to survive.
Exactly. Now, here's one of the big things is that it gets mentioned several times, but it comes up first here, is that they talk about what to do if you're in an uncontrolled descent. And Cobb screams at him and yells at him. And every time it comes up, he always makes sure to tell them, if you're in an uncontrolled descent, you eject. And he has to say that because in the DDF culture, in the culture of the Defiance Defense Force, the big thing is that the ship is more important than a person, so you should try and save if you're in an uncontrolled descent. This is one of the first breaks we see with Cobb between the traditional DDF philosophy.
I'd argue that it's at least our second. I remember us talking about it last time, about the answer that Spencer gave to the falling back and calling for help and engaging themselves. I think that just kind of started the path right there, and then it just keeps kind of going with, uncontrolled spins and everything. Especially because in the DDF culture, I think you said this, I might have spaced out, but if you are a cadet and you end up ejecting, you're basically kicked from the course. It's not doctrine, but it is just the culture of it.
Yeah, that's actually a really big thing that scares a lot of people. I think that's part of the reason Cobb hammers in on it so much, is he knows that these cadets come in like Spencer and the rest of her flight. They come in with these big wide eyes, and I want to make the DDF proud. And Cobb seems to be the only teacher that hammers into their heads that your life is more important. Just eject already.
So after one day, when they've been practicing a lot, they end up going through an obstacle course. And it turns out that Jorgen, Jerkface, who Spencer doesn't like, is going to win. And what does she do, Glorf?
She reaches, so this is a mock pit obstacle course. And she sees that he's laying back and she goes, you know what? I don't want him to win. I'm frustrated. And the winner gets a dessert. Now Spencer doesn't get dessert because Ironsides isn't feeding her. But she really doesn't want Jerkface to win. So she straight up slams her holographic ship into his and they both explode. And so they don't win. And that gets her another talking to with Cobb.
No. That time, what
And
happens
Jerkface
is,
just gets upset.
Oh yeah.
and he,
I'm just like, I guess I should review the rules, but yeah, you lost.
Jerkface responds by telling everybody that she's Chaser
Oh.
the Coward's daughter. And that's a big deal for Spencer because up until now, nobody knows she's Chaser's daughter. And
It's almost been
Chaser
like a new slate for her.
Exactly. And now everybody's judging her because of who her dad was. And she gets angry and mad about this. And so
She steals his engine.
she steals the engine to his car to power her spaceship that she had found. And she hauls it back in. She hauls it all the way back. And in the morning, she wakes up and realizes this was a really dumb decision.
I love that. I do. I love that. The chapter begins and she's sore, and all of a sudden she just like thinks, what did I do?
So,
I
But
think
that
we've
does
all had
get,
that moment in life.
but that gets the ship working. Do you want do you want to introduce everyone to your other favorite character who gets up and running?
the ship, it turns out to be an artificial intelligence named Mbot. And he loves mushrooms, collecting and cataloging mushrooms, and being 110% totally, completely rational and only simulating having a personality. Now, Mbot turns out to be a super advanced fighter from an ancient one, back when technology was way better. So Spencer gets the grand idea, if she fixes it up, she could use it to fly. So she grabs Rig, who had dropped out of the DDF.
I would say, yeah, we missed after that
The
first
dog, right?
after that very first day, that very first battle that they weren't expecting and had it, Rig.
Yeah, he got shot. I forgot to cover that. He got
Mhm.
shot, I think, 2 times.
So I
He
think
was
his shield went down, but he didn't get hit again. But it scared him enough that he ended up dropping out and left after that first day. And so, and since I wasn't very happy, there was a little bit of I want to say a tussle between the two good friends.
They had a fight.
Yeah, she
Spencer didn't
accused.
love him leaving.
Yeah, she didn't like Spencer didn't like him leaving, and Rig didn't want to stay. Turns out when she goes to get him to ask him about fixing Mbot, Rig is kind of in limbo, figuring out what to do, and so he's able to spend quite a bit of time helping her with Mbot. He's ready to devote some time
to fixing her up. At the same time, he realizes he loves engineering, and he decides to join up with the engineering corps. Well, they start repairing the starship, and things are going along. And then the section ends with she gets called up. Mbot detects on his sensors that there are a bunch of Krell ships inbound. So she starts running back to Alta Base, and she gets there just in time to get up on her fighter, her starship.
but not before people start calling her out. Why are you late? Why are you late?
And she screams about how she had to come from running from her cave. Well, there's a battle, and it's a big one, and they get involved. And it ends up with Bim and Morningtide both getting shot down.
And this is after Bim had been flirting with her, and she was experiencing something that had never really, because she's always been the coward's daughter. It was her and Rig. And like, what did she say? The only time she'd been ever had a crush on, been flirted with, was with Rig in the second grade.
something like that, 'cause she was 8, and then the next week she thought he was yucky because she was 8.
Yeah. And so the being flirted with, things like that was new, and then he ends up getting shot down. And that is the very end. The last sentence in part 2 is Skyward flight had been reduced from 9 to 7. And it's heartbreaking. And a really big, it's one thing to lose your first flight mate to anxiety and how rough everything is. It's another thing to see your flight mate shot down. Like, this is going to be a huge shakeup in how Skyward flight treats their training, treat each other, things like that. You can tell even before going into the next part that this is a huge turning point in everyone's development going on.
Yeah, I think part 2 just it lasted a lot longer than I remember, honestly. Because
Yeah.
I thought it stopped like before the first dogfight, but it just kept going and going. Which it's not bad at all, but the amount of stuff that happened in part 1 compared to part 2 is significant. Like part 1, it's like Spencer wants to be a pilot and gets accepted as a cadet. Part 2, they start their training, get in a dogfight, they lose one member. She finds a plane, fixes it up, gets in a second dogfight, and 2 people die. And it's just, I think there's a lot that just happened in part 2, especially compared to part 1.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, part 2's 12 chapters long, whereas part 1's only 6. So that makes some of the difference.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. What was our favorite and least favorite part of part 2 of Skyward?
I love how stubborn Mbot is, because she's like, they're fixing it up and they're like, this thing looks like a fighter. It has destructors. It's super sleek. They end up turning him on and he's an AI, and he's like, my job is to lay low and look for mushrooms. Everyone's like, Mbot. And I just love how stubborn he is. No, I'm looking for mushrooms. But then at the same time, he has these super cool sensors that tell Spencer when crazy stuff is going on up in the air and when she's needed. Also, he's just quirky. So I think Mbot might be my favorite part of part 2. Doomslug is wonderful too, but I think Mbot wins for just the best one-liners, and just he lightens part 2. A lot of part 2 is stressful and sad, and Mbot just kind of lightens the mood, which maybe isn't what you need in a book, but I like it.
I mean, one of my favorite parts in part 2 is when Spencer goes up to Morningtide after Cobb gives some directions to one of the other cadets about the light lances and how they're using them, and talking about the proximity sensors. And Spin just goes up to Morningtide and is like, hey, do you understand what's going on? Because Morningtide doesn't speak English. Like, she speaks just a little bit of English. And it took Spencer a while to actually figure that out and to see that different side of her about, because she's always this, I'm going to bathe in the blood of my enemies and I'm going to win, I'm going to be on top, To see her calm down a little bit and to help someone who actually needs it when they're having a hard time was one of my favorite parts. And it goes on to my worst part when she died, because Morningtide was a good character and had such a hard time, and it's sad to see her die.
Yeah. Spencer's first real one-on-one. So she tries to introduce herself to Morningtide that first day, and it's like, oh my gosh, this girl's standoffish. And then finally she approaches Morningtide and is like, you have an issue with me? And verbally attacks her until she realizes, crap, or scud, this girl doesn't speak English. And so then after that, it's like you said, Fort, she goes on to just kind of taking care of Morningtide. And it is the softer side of Spencer that you don't see super often, and she has that with Morningtide. The Doug, what do you think on this?
So, for me, I mean, I've already said Mbot, Doomslug, my 2 favorite characters. Like, I'm just gonna throw this out here. If one of Brandon Sanderson's works was adapted into a buddy cop movie, I would want it to be Mbot and Doomslug, hands down. I mean, just imagine those 2 roaming around the galaxy, solving mysteries and putting away the bad guys. It'd be hilarious. Okay. So let's be very clear here. If Hollywood, if you want, if you want to hit me up, I got ideas. We'll make money. Now, for me, what I really love is how we're kind of introduced to a cast of characters. We're introduced to most of the cast of characters in this chapter, and it doesn't expand a whole lot beyond what we've seen here at this point. But that we kind of get all of these very stereotypical people that we think, they're given kind of, I say stereotypical, but they're kind of a template, something that we're used to. Like Quirk, her whole thing is that she's super sweet and a little bit sassy. And she very much is based on a Southern belle. She constantly is telling people, bless your stars, and things like that, Whereas we get Jorgen, who supposedly he comes off as the super uptight kiss ass that's like, oh, look at we need to do everything by the rules, and I'm so important. Da, 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 da. And we get these kind of things. But then with like Morningtime, at first she's like, oh, because her people are descendants of the guards of the ship. They were like the people so they're warrior culture. In the original Defiance, spaceship that they crashed, they were the guards. And so her people have a reputation as being like warriors and fighters. And so initially everybody, you kind of assume, oh, this girl's just super uptight. She's like, thinks she's super cool. But it turns out she doesn't speak English. And I think that kind of kicks off, and it kind of causes you to reevaluate how you're looking at Morningtide, and then to start reevaluating how you're looking at the other characters. And for me, I think that's really powerful, because here's the thing. From the first time I read the book, day one, I was like, you know what? I'm on Jorgen's side. Spence's being a butt. Because here's the problem, is that sure, Jorgen's being a little bit uptight. Maybe he's being a little bit like, oh, I need to be in charge, etc. But you never get the feeling, at least I never thought he was like trying to be in charge just to be important. And here's the thing, is that Spencer, her problem is she's way off the reservation a lot of the time. One of the most important things you need to be able to do in combat situations and life or death in the military is learn to follow orders. Insubordination and going off on your own and things like that, that's a huge problem, because when people are like, oh, I've got ideas, it gets people killed. Now, Fort, you're making faces at me. What do you think here? Maybe you've got a little bit more experience with the armed forces than myself. So you tell me what you think about that.
I mean, when I read and get introduced to Jorgen, I don't really like him very much, but I agree with the decision that they made to make him flight leader and his two, as Spencer puts them, cronies, Ned and Arturo, as his captains or whatever. I agree with those decisions, especially after they're explained. But I mean, yes, you are right. You do follow orders and you do what you're told. But sometimes when you do have to make a quick decision, sometimes it is up to you to do it. And it might not always be the right decision, but a wrong decision made now is better than the right decision made in 24 hours.
Right. And I mean, I agree with you. The problem is Spencer's not making decisions based on what does she think is best. Here's the thing. Spencer comes off a little bit, at least from my perspective, for the first bit, very much what makes Spencer feel good or look good. She's constantly trying to prove herself, and some of the decisions she makes are about what makes her look good rather than what's best for the flight. And it's a really big moment for her. I can't say anything. Spoilers. Part 3.
Well, I agree with that. I also think it helps make her own person. It helps bring the flight together, because if everybody just fell in line with Jorgen and just did everything he said, everyone fell into attention, everyone saluted, everyone would have done all that stuff, and no one would have stood up for everybody else. Because Spencer is that personality type. She will go up and confront authority and just be like, no. And that helps, because that helps bond them, especially when she gives him the name Jerkface. He's like, you can't call me that. And then everyone just starts calling him it. And it helps bond them together and helps give Spencer her own personality and thing. And sometimes that's what you need in people, to challenge authority and to figure things out, because by challenging authority, it shows that you're not just going to shut off your brain and do what you're told, because you need to learn to adapt, improvise, overcome, and do what is needed when the time is right. Because if all you do is, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Which I've done a lot, and I need to start getting more in a mindset of what can I do instead of what should I do, right? Instead of being told what to do, look for what to do and have other people help accomplish that mission, right? Because if you have a commander, he gives out the mission like, hey, go storm this town. He'll give that to his subordinates, his sergeants and everything. And then they will go to their individual people, and everybody will figure it out and be like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. He wants this place stormed. We're going to break it up in sections. You take these people, you'll take these people, you'll take these people." And then each person will have to, they'll break up in teams and figure out their own section of the pie. If something goes wrong, you all just have to figure out what to do at that point. And so I agree that Spencer probably didn't do it the best, but at the same time, it had a good outcome, especially because it helped bond everybody together.
Okay, that's a fair point. And maybe that's part of it, is that it seems like, Jorgen is coming off as an officer, and Spencer's a little bit more maybe of the NCO. That she's kind of like the sergeant that helps his buddy. But I don't know. Glorf, what did you think of Jorgen when you first met him, and him and Spencer's interactions?
He definitely bugged me. But I think it was just because he seemed kind of self-righteous. And you look at it, especially the second time through, I can see why he recognizes he's used when Cobb lays out Jorgen's credentials. You can see Jorgen understands he's the most qualified, right? It's not just who his parents are, but he comes off.
Can you clarify for us what exactly his credentials are for him and his two cronies to be chosen?
Well, I mean, their parents are first citizens, right? These people that fought in the Battle of Alta, but they also have hours, hundreds of hours of flight time under their belts already, because their families own personal ships and are able to go and do those things. So they have more social connections, and they also have like practical experience, which works well in a flight leader who's then the one, like Tanner described. Cobb's the one that tells them basically what to do, and then Jorgen's the one that's going to tell them what to do from there. You need someone with flight experience. I think Spencer was hoping to be flight leader, to do something cool. She's always living under this terrible shadow of her father, the coward. And I could see her, I can understand why she stands up to Jorgen, right? She's in a situation where she doesn't know if Jorgen knows who she is. As far as she knows, she's got a clean slate, and there's someone still treating her like she's less, and I can see why she just stands up. So Jorgen bugs me at first, but like the second time through, I'm looking at it going, all right, Cobb is right. And yeah,
I think that's the ultimate thing. I don't think Spencer was a bad person or Jorgen was a bad person. I think Cobb made the right call.
He did. They just don't click.
They both did wrong things. They both were kind of idiots and scuds to each other. But Cobb made the right
they
decision.
definitely
He knows what's going on.
Yeah, they definitely clash a lot, but they're both good for the flight. Like you said earlier, they're both essential for the flight, but they just clash. Any other thoughts on the book for book club today?
I'm excited to read part 3. See what happens there. Like, I've read the book before, so I know what happens generally, but specifically in part 3, I'm excited for.
One thing I love about Sanderson books, they're just as good the second and third times through.
Facts.
Now concluded, we wanted to have a discussion. So Glorf and myself were having a discussion yesterday about the shards, and realized this would be an interesting discussion for other people that like to listen about Brandon Sanderson. Now, Fort is our resident Cosmere expert. I'm going to be honest. Between the three of us, he definitely knows the most. So we're going to play a little game. It's the name the shard game. Okay. One of us will say a shard, and then the next person has to come up with another shard within 5 to 10 seconds. If they can't, they lose, they're out. The goal is to get through all 16 of the shards that we have. And so for context, for those of you, I'm sure many of you listening already know, but in the beginning, there was Adonalsium, and he was shattered into 16 shards, and 16 people, quote unquote, not all of them were human, probably. Well, we know not all of them were human.
We know there's at least 1 or 2 showdown. One of them's a dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Took up the pieces of the shattered Adonalsium and became shards, which for all intents and purposes are functionally gods for specific planets in the Cosmere. And the power always exists and has an intent. Each shard has an intent, but they also have a vessel, and the intent wants to do things a certain way, but the vessel may not agree. So that's what the shard is. So, Fort, you want to start us off by naming the first shard?
Preservation is the first one I always think of.
I'm gonna go with preservation's opposite, ruin.
That's whimsy. I got one of
I'll go
them.
with Whimsy's always fun. I'll go with Dominion.
Devotion, the companion to dominion.
Honor.
I'll go Cultivation.
Odium.
Autonomy.
Endowment.
Ambition.
Virtuosity.
Mercy.
Did we say invention yet?
Nope.
No.
Invention.
I might be losing.
Brr.
Ugh.
Is that-
Valor. It's Valor.
Is that the last one?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
no, there's
for
one
those of
more.
you counting, we don't know the 16th. We only know 15 out of 16 of them.
Technically, there's 17 now ish.
What?
Harmony
Technically, now
is
it'd be 15.
Well,
Ruin and
there's this-
preservation become harmony. So there's technically a name for a 17th, even if it's like a 2-for-1 special.
So does that mean that there are 19 shards or 18 shards? Because Aiden Alcyon was all the shards at once, so therefore he's actually a different shard than what they are now.
now we're getting very meta.
Facts.
I
So,
was gonna say harmony and I forgot.
I wouldn't count Harmony as one because he is 2 shards put together, but not a single shard itself.
exactly. And so let's talk about harmony. Give us the background on harmony there, Fort, and Discord.
Okay. Discord is more of a theoretical thing that was kind of introduced to us in the original Final Empire. Harmony, we'll start with Harmony. So, Preservation and Ruin both were on Scadrial. They were both alive, and they made this deal. We will create sentient life, and Preservation said, I will put part of myself in them so they can live, breathe, and everything. And in the agreement, Ruin gets to destroy the planet at the end of the contract. Time came, Ruin said, okay, I'm going to destroy everything. Preservation said, I don't want you to, though. So Preservation gave up more of himself to trap Ruin and took some of Ruin's power away and threw that in a place.
Who would have guessed preservation wants to preserve stuff? Crazy.
Weird. So then the Mistborn, they end up fighting
Major
Ruin.
spoilers, by the way. Major
Yeah.
spoilers for just all the books. Like talking
All
about
Cos-
shards, once
everything.
you get to Cosmere, yeah, it's major spoilers, my friends.
Yeah. So they ended up so Preservation ended up dying because he died thousands of years ago. And shards don't die like, oh no, I'm dead. They like, sometimes they take time. Like the vessel for Preservation, Larry's, ended up taking years and decades to actually die till someone was able to pick up his power. Now, Ruin died a little more immediate because there was a clash of shards where Vin ended up picking up Preservation and fought against the vessel of Ruin, which was AT at the time, and ended up fighting and destroyed both of them.
Which
Now,
there's a little bit of an asterisk and caveat with each of these, right? Because for shards, time isn't linear, it's more wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. And it's not that the power is destroyed, because the power can't be destroyed. It's that the vessel holding the power gets killed.
Yes. And so now the power of both Preservation and Ruin are sitting there on the ground, almost quite literally in the physical realm, as Sazed is standing over Vin's dead body and this random dead body, which is AT, never know. And he ends up getting both of those shards and becoming the vessel for both of them. And he tries to keep them in balance because they're both tugging him different ways. So he's doing his best right now to keep them in harmony, hence his name, Harmony. And that's what's up with Harmony. Now, Discord, oof, I love the thought of Discord because unintentionally, the first chapter we meet Sazed is also the Discord chapter. Brandon said he wished he was that smart, but it just happened coincidentally. So, but it's very interesting because my current theory, this is not canon or anything, this is my theory. I don't know how many of you share this though. Because the contract was made with Preservation and Ruin to destroy the planet, I think that's still going to happen. Right now, Sazed is taking more of a Preservation approach with doing a little bit of things here and there, like more in the Wax and Lane series, but it's not enough to balance out the scales. So it's going to tip, and it's going to be more sporadic, not complete ruin, but it'll be more sporadic. He'll do things here, he won't do things here, and I think it'll just be chaos. It'll be discord, and eventually ruin is going to be able to destroy the planet because it is a contract between shards and not vessels. As we've seen with other shards, they are still bound to the contract of their previous vessel.
Ooh, that's an interesting theory because I didn't even think about that. So, you have
Yeah.
anything to add about discord and harmony there, Glorf? I'd never thought about though. They're still bound by the contract. If Odium,
Yeah, we see that in Odium. I hadn't thought about it till now. I actually was going to ask Fort, what do you, the first paragraph we meet says it has discord.
Yeah, it mentions the discord. I can grab my book and look at it real quick.
Didn't mean to send him away.
Right here.
But yeah, it's, geez, now says it's got to keep up a contract with himself.
and part of it is the, like we alluded to, there's the shardic intent. So each shard wants a specific theme, and because the shard is godlike power, it pushes on the vessel. And I mean, we get into realmatic theory here, but everything is in one of three realms: the spiritual, the cognitive, or physical. And I mean, we'll have a discussion on realmatic theory later and the importance of connection and all those things. So,
But Hoyd at one part even mentions, it's in one of the letters he sends, talking about how not every vessel matches the shard, right? Because he talks about how AT didn't originally match Ruin and fell into it, but how Rays always seemed to match Odium.
and Rays was
So-
always a git.
Rays was always a git.
Now, well,
And now
Ford-
he's dead. Spoiler.
Well, Ford is looking that up. I'm going to put an asterisk that we don't know who the 16th shard is. The 16th shard may be wisdom. We get in one of Hoyd's letters, he talks about how he's abandoned wisdom or something about wisdom, but he doesn't know the tongue in which she speaks. Now, maybe it's just he's talking about wisdom, the way the ancient literature does, about wisdom being personified as a woman, or wisdom is like a shard that has the good sense to stay away from the Hoyd, or the Seraphandrius, or the Wit, or the, what are the other
Topaz.
dozen? Yeah. So,
Man of many names.
yeah. Now, why don't you tell us about your favorite shard there, Glorf?
Oh, I'm supposed to have a favorite shard. One of the shards I find the most intriguing right now is cultivation. And it might be because I'm an edge dancer, and so, I have a cultivation spren somewhere with me. The cultivation is playing the long con. And it's like, because when we look in the Rosharan system, right? Honor, good. Odium, bad. But what is cultivation? Because you see how she's been playing with Tervangian and Lift and Dalinar, and just kind of toying with them, manipulating things to happen on Roshar as she wants. None of us know what her game is yet. And so she's a little bit like Hoyd, where I don't know if she's good or bad, and it bugs me.
Well,
And so I'm really interested to see what kind of development comes with her, from her.
Well, and I think that the part of the problem is simplifying them to good and bad. Now, Brandon does a good job at making it very clear, Ruin's bad because he's about to end the world, and that's where our heroes keep all their stuff. So they don't want the world to end, right? Because that's where all their stuff is. Great. But he also makes an excellent point that preservation doesn't want anything to change either. Part of the reason the Final Empire lasted around so long was directly because of preservation's influence, and everything stagnated. I mean, what's his name? Sazed talks about this, that the Final Empire had stagnated and basically saw no progress for thousands of years. So that's the thing, is that we say they're good or bad, but really it's more protagonist, antagonist, because on the flip side, I don't, again, not saying that I trust Odium's work, because I think he's a lying git, but he talks about how Honor, especially toward the end, only cared about oaths for the sake of oaths, right? He had basically become very similar to the way Nail was, and that Odium is the only one that really understands passion among the shards. So, What do you think, Ford?
Well, going back a little bit to what you said while I was looking for the thing, which I did find, I can read that in a second. I might be wrong. I did think that it was that AT was more suited for Ruin than Raze was for Odium, because AT was able to focus Ruin less on mindless destruction, more on entropy, the end of all things, rather than mindless random destruction. That's why the contract is, I will get to destroy the world at the end, not just randomly destroy things, but like, and because Odium is such a powerful shard, him and Raze weren't very compatible, which is why Cultivation, I read anyways, why Cultivation did to Terravenging what she did, able to give him the smarts and able to control the emotions at separate times, so that when the time came, he was able to pick it up and use them in unison. That's kind of what I understood.
Interesting. I've always just taken it as there's a War of the Shards coming soon, and she thought Terravenging would do a better job, but she also underestimates him. So, but read us that part about Discord.
So it's chapter 8, just the part right before every single chapter. It's from the logbook, not logbook, the journal. It says, he shall defend their ways, yet shall violate them. He will be their savior, yet they shall call him heretic. His name shall be discord, yet they shall love him for it.
Ooh.
So it's a very small thing, but that little thing has got a big discussion throughout the entire Sanderverse, the fan club and everything. Sander fans.
That's really cool.
So let's talk about our other shards. So, and here's the thing, right? We don't actually know that much about Honor, because he's splintered by the time we get him, which is another very interesting concept. If a shard splinters, that means the parts of the shard are still around. And what if those parts of a shard could be taken up by, say, somebody that was aligned with Honor's intent? Like, say, somebody that really wanted to protect people or unite people, or, you know, somebody that was like, maybe one of the shards of Honor, because Honor binds things together, is unity. You know, maybe like somebody that's constantly being told unite them
I guess.
is what I'm straight up saying is I think Dalinar's carrying a shard of
A splinter.
a splinter of Honor. He's carrying unity, and I think.
I doubt it.
Why do you doubt it? I
don't entirely doubt it.
Oh,
I mean, I'm just saying he's able to do things that nobody else was able to do before. So
Open a perpendicularity.
Exactly, among other things.
well, yeah, because that wasn't they weren't bondsmiths weren't capable of that when Honor was around, because that's Honor's perpendicularity. It's his shtick, and so the splinter thing does make sense if that little bit was in unity. And then, Doug, you've mentioned before that Kaladin might be a splinter as well.
Yeah.
Because he's Kaladin and he has that thing about protecting people.
I think that, so long ago, I don't even know what it is. I've just heard the discussion very briefly a few times, where Brandon said something about the 10 purposes of Honor, or like the 10 intents of Honor. I think each one of them lines up with one of the orders: unification, protection, laws, people, all those different things. And I think each of our protagonists will have a piece of it, whether they do now or what they will. My theory is based on a lot of things that have happened. I personally think Syl is going to die in the next one.
No.
Shut your mouth, you filthy heretic.
Yeah, no. He has to know he would lose the entire fan base and probably have his mansion burned down.
But what if Dalinar loses the battle of champions, Stormfather dies, and Kaladin takes the place of the Stormfather?
Yeah, I don't care. Syl can go find someone else.
Yeah. We're not talking about that right now. No,
Yeah.
You've made me sad. I'm not even thinking about that. No, let's talk about any other shard. Let's talk about Odium, because he's the most interesting shard, because he's been going around since Elantris, which, to put in context, you know, for a brief kind of rough timeline, none of this is like super official, but events of Elantris happen at the same time the Oath Pact is broken, right? And that's about 4,000 years before the events of Stormlight Archive. And Stormlight Archive parts, the first 5 books and the second 5 books, in between them the events of Mistborn Era 2 happen. So, and then several hundred years before is when the events of Warbreaker happen, before Stormlight Archive, and kind of around the same time, the events of Mistborn Era 1. So, well, go ahead.
Someone has theorized, or I've made connection or something, that possibly the consequences of what happened at the Recreants or Harietium, when they broke the Oath Pact, is part of what might have caused the fault line to appear in Sal.
That'd be crazy.
Oh.
Well, nah, because
Think about it.
No, because Aeon
They're not
Dora.
even the same. They're not in the same system. They're not ruled by the same.
Everything's connected in the spiritual realm.
Yeah,
But have we seen any other? Have we seen any other connections between Cell and Roshar that would indicate that?
I guess, but at that point, the Aeon door was already working, and so Dominion and Devotion had already been shattered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about Dominion and Devotion. Why don't you give us a rundown on Dominion and Devotion real quick, Ford?
Dominion and Devotion, we don't know a whole bunch about them, really. Odium, I guess, the Doug gave us a good timeline, and close to the beginning of that timeline, in Elantris, Odium decided, well, I want to be the only shard and I don't want to do anything else because he doesn't want to be corrupted by any of the other intents. And so he went around and he found Dominion and Devotion. He's like, well, I'm going to kill you guys. And so he decided to kill the vessels that held their power, and he didn't want anyone else taking them up. So he just shoved them into the cognitive realm. And now though that power is just kind of in there, making it unstable to move in and out of the cognitive realm through the perpendicularities there.
And
Wait, so
that's kind of
that's
what we know.
maybe I didn't fully understand. So it's the shattering of Dominion and Devotional is what created Aeon Door. It's all their little splintered pieces that make Aeon Door.
Kind of what I've always imagined it is, because their power is in the cognitive realm, they need a way to get out. And so Aeon Door is a way to get out. Kind of like a dam. If you have a dam that releases water every now and then, that's kind of what it is. It's releasing a little bit of that spiritual power.
That's how I've taken it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Dominion and Devotion were a package item, right? They were mustard and ketchup. They were peanut butter and jelly. And that's part of. And so here's another point to keep in mind.
Sky. That's what they are.
Is that each of the shards made a pact to be all like, we're not going to mess with each other after the shattering of Ad Nauseam.
Whether it was a pact, like an actual oath, or just like, hey, we shouldn't do it, we're not 100% sure, but there was something. Because then everyone decided to just say, well, I'm going to do it anyways.
Well, and Autonomy's got her hands in everything too. So it's not just Odium that's been moving around, breaking whatever.
Autonomy's weird.
Autonomy's really weird. Well, the only time we really see Ambition. Did we miss Ambition?
No, we said Ambition.
Ambition's an exciting one.
Yeah.
No, it's right. In our listing.
No, we got it.
You got Ambition.
I have all the moon down, so I was checking them off as you said.
Okay.
I cheated.
No, I get Autonomy and Ambition mixed up sometimes, but Autonomy's got little tendrils everywhere. We see it in the Lost Metal is the first time we have any real direct interaction with Autonomy, I believe.
Maybe. People have theorized, and on what Brandon has said on people, what they've said about it, Autonomy might actually be the Fjordish
Fjordell?
religion.
Yeah, interesting.
Red armor, hierarchy, everyone has to be one.
I mean, well, and technically that can't be the first time we saw it, because the first time we see it, Autonomy in action is on Taldane, which is Autonomy's home system.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's okay. Yeah, no, I did know that.
And then we also know that Autonomy. So if you've read Ars Arcanum Unbounded, Autonomy is also present on First of the Sun, because First of the Sun is actually set far in the space age future, and that's why Chris says, "Oh, there's no perpendicularities there now," because when Chris was writing, there wasn't. But in the far future, Patchy Autonomy. right? And it makes sense because Patchy's whole thing is I'm going to kill everybody who comes here and only the strongest may survive, which fits very well with what we see Autonomy be doing in the Waxing Way.
Metal even.
Yeah.
Yeah. You muted.
Let's talk about ambition. Like, ambition's one of my favorites, and I don't feel we talk about it nearly enough. Because it's like, whoa.
Like, it's because we don't really know a lot. Like, Ambition was on Threnody at some point, got in a clash with Odium and Mercy. I say and Mercy, but we don't know what Mercy was doing there, whose side it was on, what was going on. We were just told Mercy was there. And Ambition ended up splintering on Threnody and it ended up leaving and might have died somewhere else. Died, I mean, as shattered.
Yeah, but it also, the conflict like totally messed up the spiritual and cognitive realms. So when people die on Threnody, it's not like, oh, they're dead, they're in the ground now. It's like, hey, their ghostly apparition is going to come back, and if you do like one of a bajillion different things, it's going to kill you.
It's the first implementation we've seen of silver as well, the Cosmere, which is interesting because it's non-elementic metal. Everyone's like, what about silver? Everyone's like, I got stuff.
Well,
one of the first times we see it do something.
Which that's actually really interesting because I didn't make that connection until just now. But how do you stop spores?
Yep, silver.
Silver.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what does it deal with silver, and what does that mean about spores? So
The silver has some spiritual integrity to do with investiture and destruction.
That is interesting. So the last shard I want to touch on, if we can, is Virtuosity that shows up in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Now it said that that Virtuosity splintered herself. Now that seems like an interesting idea. Did she do it? Like, was this like a suicide odium or autonomy are coming for me? Or now this is something we don't know the answers to, but do you guys have any theories about why Virtuosity did what she did?
Well,
He.
she.
She.
So, and one thing to be very clear on is virtuosity does not come from the root of virtue, like we think about it, about like being good. Virtuosity's intent concerns artistic intent, talent, and appreciation. So, like a virtuoso, that was one thing that was a big whoa for me, which is why she's all like stacking rocks is awesome.
I mean, as you were speaking, Glorf, one thing that I thought of honestly is in one of the little snippets we get before each chapter when Hoyd, before someone, I think we mentioned it, it just wants to hide and survive. Maybe that's what it did. Maybe it splintered a little bit, but didn't shatter, and then decided to run off and hide to survive. I could totally see that going on.
That would be interesting. But I don't
Like,
know.
I'm just going to leave enough investiture over here so it's detectable, and have just enough so I can hide and still survive.
Yeah, and we know that virtuosity is like super powerful because like the Yoki Hijo have the same level of investment as like a full Lantrian. And that's like a lot of freaking investment.
Yeah,
to
but
design.
like each shard has the exact same amount of power energy at the beginning. And when it was shattered, they were all the same. As time goes by, they fluctuate. Like Rune and Preservation had the same until Preservation gave some of himself. And then he took some of Rune, had to give up some of himself.
Yeah, but like it's spread
all
out
fluctuates.
to a certain extent, right? I mean, because like we see endowment spread very thin and spread out a lot, right? Because everybody on Malthus gets some of the endowment, and some of them get like boot endowment, whereas like the Elantrians super invested.
Do you think endowment just does it when like 5 people die at once and it's like I have, or like hundreds of people die and it's like, oh, I just have this whole bunch of breath. Let's go to.
I don't know. Maybe that could be fun.
I'm joking. No,
Hey,
I
I've
think
got all
so.
this leftover investiture. I'll send somebody back. Hey, you're the last person to die. You seemed like a decent guy. Shove it into your head. Go back now. Be a god. Go eat souls. It'll be fun. So, but what? So, what have shards? So here's one thing for the record that was like just unfair, Brandon. Okay, so before Rhythm of War, we knew like 12 of the shards. I think maybe only 10. It wasn't a lot.
16 minus 5.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah. So no, we knew 10, right? Because we still don't know one. And then randomly in one of the epigraphs at the beginning of the chapter, he just straight up name drops like 5 of them right there, and like boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, oh, what? Included in that is Invention and Whimsy, who we know nothing about.
Mercy and Valor.
Mercy and Valor. So those 4, we know nothing about them right now, except
No,
they
they
are
exist.
shards. So
I remember being excited by that because
Mhm.
all of a sudden it was like, we've got names to put to the powers that we didn't even know. It was an exciting day, even if we still don't know anything about them. We got something now.
So what? Any shards we haven't discussed yet? I'm trying to think. So let's talk about endowment. That's an interesting one because it seems like endowment's whole thing is basically giving people power. I don't know. It's complicated.
Well, because
Yeah.
endowment is a gift, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense that she gives that little gift of breath to everybody. Honestly, when I imagine endowment, I imagine like, how do I describe it? You know, those like the kind of curvy, matronly women with the hair in a bun that just has like candy to give to everyone. Like not a grandma, but almost there, that just loves everybody and gives them all little gifts when they come by her house. That's kind of how I imagine endowment.
Interesting. Yeah,
Well,
what I think's interesting about endowment's magic, with things like Allomancy and Stormlight and most of those things, you have to be spiritually broken in some way to allow the investiture to seep in and heal the cracks. With endowment, she just like staples it on there as an extra. Like, here you go, you can have this.
And I don't know. So I think we're getting close to time, but I think you bring up an interesting point there, Glorf, that we've always, every time we've read one of these books, we've always been doing it from a certain viewpoint character, from the protagonist viewpoint, right? And those protagonist viewpoints usually have one shard that they're aligned with and one shard that they're against. But I think that's one of the things that's being foreshadowed at the end of Rhythm of War is that, and that I think section 2 of Stormlight's going to focus on. There's going to be a war of the shards where the shards are like going all at it. And I think we've seen part of that in Lost Metal, right? And so the question is, like, when these shards actually start going at each other, are our heroes like, which shards are actually going to be the good guys and which ones are going to be the bad guys? And what does it even mean to be a good guy? Like, I mean, suppose that like odium or that cultivation ends up fighting harmony. Who's the good guy? Or like, you know, virtuosity or somebody tries to invade Komashi. I mean, we know that doesn't happen because Komashi is way later. So, but it's an interesting thing. And what is Hoyt up to? Because it seems to me like he's going around collecting investiture like it's candy so he can staple himself to each of the shards. And then at one point he's going to grab them all at the same time and be all like, boom.
I don't think so.
No.
we could have an entire like 3-episode series on what is Hoyt up to, and we still wouldn't know.
True. It's true.
Well, everybody, thank you for listening. This was the Doug with a reminder to always brush your teeth.
Glorf signing off, telling you to drink lots of water. Are we doing self-help advice today?
This is for don't eat too much candy. You can eat some, just not too much.
But before we do that, we tricked all you. Everybody listening, totally tricked you. It wasn't that we totally forgot. We have a meme off real quick. So,
Right. I've got mine.
I
okay,
got mine.
Glorf, give us the meme.
So today our memes are set to align with, are supposed to be about our personal what are they called?
Radiant order.
Radiant orders. And so since I'm an edge dancer, my meme is about edge dancers. So this is the meme. It's Matthew McConaughey very stressfully smoking a cigarette. It says, edge dancers worrying they've forgotten to remember someone who has been forgotten, but they can't remember if they've forgotten because then they would be forgotten.
Meta.
I like
I
that
like
one.
it.
Forgotception.
All right, who's got the next one?
Or if you want to give us the next, Fort, you want to give us the next one?
Yeah, I can give her the next one. So mine is Buzz Lightyear and Woody sitting on the bed, and Buzz is depicting Calvin and says, "See, still I can fly." And then Woody is partially like Sil is and says, "You don't fly, you just fall the wrong way."
I like that one. This
I
isn't
really like
flying,
that one.
It's falling with style, which is
Yep.
funny because it's true.
I know.
Excellent. And so I've got mine. So I identify with the Order of the Windrunners,
Skybreakers.
Skybreakers, not Windrunners. And so I think that one's a little bit hard to, work with, but I think I got it. So it's 3 consecutive pictures of Officer Earl from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs running. And the first one says innocence in danger, windrunners running towards it. The second one says people being enslaved, and it has wheel shapers running towards it. And the last one has someone takes the tag off the mattress, skybreakers running towards it. Because their thing is all
I like
about,
it.
Following rules. So
The
I
tag
love
definitely
it. We had
says,
some
"Do
good
not
ones.
move."
Doug, Fort, you guys had some good ones today.
I like yours. It was fun.
well, everybody, we've already signed off. So don't forget to comment on what meme is your favorite, or go ahead and vote. And we'll see you guys next time. Let us know if
Bye.
there's any shard knowledge we forgot.
Yes.
Till next time. Remember, there's always another secret.